Welcome. My name is Peter Strong. I'm a professional psychotherapist and I offer online therapy via Skype. So if you're looking for a psychotherapist who uses Skype, then do please go to my website and learn more about the online therapy service that I provide. Skype is a very good choice because it's very secure, it's encrypted, and it allows you to see each other, which is a very important part of effective communication. So it's a very good choice if you are considering online therapy. You really do need to see each other. So I work almost exclusively now via Skype, simply because people enjoy the convenience of Skype therapy, and people really find it more comfortable to have their sessions from home than going to a therapist's office. Being comfortable is really important. That greatly increases the effectiveness of the psychotherapy process. You need to feel in control. You need to feel free to ask questions and really explore the methods that I'll be teaching you. This is really important. This is your process. It's quite different than simply going to a doctor for a prescription medication. What I teach is a set of well-tested methods that you can apply yourself for overcoming chronic anxiety and depression, and also for working with the underlying emotional cause of addiction. Whatever the form of emotional suffering that is affecting you, you can overcome that emotional suffering when you have the tools to do it effectively. So that's the focus that I take in my therapy sessions. I will be teaching you how to apply mindfulness for overcoming anxiety and depression and other forms of emotional suffering. It's better, in my opinion, to think of anxiety and depression as well as being a set of emotional and psychological habits. This is much more useful than labeling anxiety or depression as an illness or a mental problem. They're not. They are learned habits. We learn how to become anxious and afraid. We learn how to become depressed. This learning happens unconsciously as we build more and more habits, unconscious reactive habits. Typically, these habits involve 4 kinds of reactivity. There is cognitive reactivity. This is reactive thinking that becomes habitual. Rumination, chronic worrying, and other forms of negative thinking that reinforce the underlying emotion. There is emotional reactivity, where we react to our emotions with other emotions. So this could include self-hatred or self-criticism. The inner critic is a big problem that fuels anxiety and depression particularly. And that's a form of emotional reactivity. There's also behavioral reactivity, where we seek to avoid the emotion by distraction or engaging in some activity that takes us away from the underlying emotional pain, and addiction falls into that category of behavioral reactivity. As you know, addiction does not heal the underlying anxiety or depression or trauma that is feeding that addiction. The addiction is simply a reaction to that pain, an attempt to escape the pain, which is, of course, completely ineffective. And the fourth kind of reactivity that we encounter is somatic reactivity. This is how the body reacts to anxiety and depression. So the fight or flight type reactions are a form of somatic reactivity. The changes in facial expression and posture that you would expect for depression, for example, is a form of somatic reactivity. So all of these forms of reactivity have the same effect. They reinforce the underlying emotional trauma that hasn't healed. Emotional trauma simply refers to any intense emotion that has not been processed properly and completely, and that continues to cause anxiety or depression. So in mindfulness therapy, we learn how to work with the underlying emotions. We learn how to work with these patterns of reactivity that feed those underlying emotions. And the approach is very, very effective indeed. This is quite different than conventional counseling or talk therapy. We're not trying to understand our anxiety or depression. We're trying to promote healing of our anxiety and depression as it manifests itself in the present. This is where healing happens. Understanding can be useful, but it is rarely enough to heal anxiety or depression. People usually have some level of understanding already about when their anxiety or depression got started and how they fall into patterns of reactivity that feed that suffering, but they don't know how to stop that process. They don't know the practical things they can do in the present, and that's what I'll be teaching you through the techniques of mindfulness therapy. We can learn how to overcome the patterns of reactivity and the underlying emotions themselves. The effect is very, very profound, long-lasting, and it provides a path for growing in well-being and happiness as well as just healing the underlying suffering. So if you'd like to learn more about mindfulness therapy and you're looking for a therapist to work with via Skype, then do please contact me and let's schedule a Skype therapy session. I see people worldwide. All you need is a good internet connection, and then we can arrange for a Skype therapy session. Typically, people see big changes after the first 3 or 4 sessions with me once you learn how to apply these practical methods for working with anxiety and depression and other forms of emotional suffering. Thank you.